Israeli authorities are still weighing its options on whether to respond to Iran's attack. This weekend saw more than 300 projectiles fired targeting Israel being successfully intercepted. We'll talk about what's expected to happen in the coming hours and days. Avi Hyman, the Israeli government spokesperson, joins me now. Avi, good morning. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. There has been the benefit of a little time to evaluate between the events of the weekend and today, listen to the various sides, what your allies are saying, and make a decision on next steps. Israel has vowed retaliation. It's also assembled its war cabinet, saying it will defend itself. Has that position changed?
Man, thank you so much for having me on. Let me just say that on a personal level, I've been to South Africa a number of times. It's a beautiful country with some of the most warm and welcoming people that I've ever met. As far as what's going on in Israel, we saw that awful attack on Saturday night, 2 a.m. in the morning. We had to grab our children and run to bomb shelters with, like you say, more than 300 projectiles, but those were suicide drones, ballistic missiles, and cruise missiles headed to our country that were thankfully 99% of them blown up in the air above us. Now, you use the term retaliation. I'm not sure what that means. This is a narrative that's definitely being pushed by Iran, but Iran has been behind this war since October 7th, when they activated Hamas to come in through our borders to rape, to kill, to behead, to burn entire families alive. This was the worst attack against Jews in a single day since the Holocaust. And now, just this Saturday night, we see this unprecedented attack of drones and missiles at our country. Had just a few of them broken through the barrier, which I think they wanted to do, there would have been absolute carnage in our country. We know that, sadly, one 7-year-old Muslim Israeli girl is fighting for her life as we speak, just because of shrapnel from one missile. So if you could imagine what could have happened if some more of those missiles would have got through. It was a very, very serious attack by Iran directed at our country and our people.
Avi, let's go to the issue that you highlighted just now. You've pushed back on the framing of Iran's response as a retaliation to a consulate building bombing. You have said the site was not a diplomatic mission. In one interview, you said it was a military Al-Quds target. Tell us more about the Israeli intelligence gathering that deemed it so.
So you'll understand that this is sensitive. I can't speak directly to that hit in Damascus. What I can say definitively is from our intelligence is that wasn't, as you said, a diplomatic mission of any kind. It definitely wasn't an embassy. It wasn't a consulate. There was Al-Quds general there and other Al-Quds force. The Al-Quds force is the Iranian, Iran's way of exporting terror around the world. We know that Iran pulls the strings and pays the budgets for Hamas in Gaza in our south, for Hezbollah in Lebanon in the north, for Shia militias in Syria, Shia militias in Iraq, and obviously the Houthis in Yemen. So all of those strings are being pulled by the great puppet masters of Tehran, and they are funding all of these terror organizations that have been fighting us for decades. Iran is a country that has stated at every given opportunity that they seek to destroy us, to wipe us off the map.
Yeah.
So to take their threats very seriously. And what happened on Saturday night was truly unprecedented.
Avi, I want to dig deeper into that one. As you say, it's sensitive, and one can appreciate those sensitivities. But you've said wasn't a diplomatic mission of any kind. What prompted the decision to attack it then, taking out several senior leaders of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, incidentally, who form a key part of the Iranian armed forces? Did Israel consider the consequences?
Well, again, I can't talk directly to that, to what happened there. I can't speak about that at all. But what I can say is that my Prime Minister has made it very clear time and again that those that seek to harm us, we will have to harm them. I mean, that is the reality of living in a democratic country that is under attack by terrorist organizations day in, day out. So we're just trying to defend ourselves. We didn't choose this war. We didn't want this war. But I'll remind you that Hamas, a proxy of Iran, plowed through our borders, committed awful atrocities, crimes against humanity, and is still holding 133 Israelis that we know are being sexually abused, that we know are being virtually starved and held in awful conditions with not a single visit from the Red Cross. This war could end right now. This is what people don't understand. This war could end right now if Iran just picked up the phone to Hamas and said, surrender, fully surrender, and give back the 133 hostages. Yeah. Then this war would finish.
Avi, this conversation has many legs and streams, and therefore I'm choosing to focus on the events over the last couple of days because it is critical and it is important. Every action or counteraction that is taken has massive responses. I mean, we'll talk in a moment, if there's time, about the impact this has had on your allies, saying, urging a de-escalation, saying that, Israel shouldn't essentially do anything further. So we'll hopefully get back to that. But every action has to be evaluated on its merits. And again, I go back to the point, Israel hasn't definitively said it was behind that hit on this installation, whether you call it an installation, not a consulate or whatever, but it has precipitated an incredibly precipitous moment in the world, which affects major superpowers, which affects the stability of the region, and I don't think that we can gloss over that. So, clear answer then. I mean, was this an Israeli attack on whatever this particular site was? Let's start there.
Well, you've asked the question now 3 times, and I'm going to have to give you the same answer that I can't speak directly to that. But this war didn't start a few weeks ago. This war didn't even start on October 7th. Iran has been activating its proxies for decades, has been calling for our destruction for decades. Some would argue down to when the Islamic regime took over the revolution in Iran. They've been calling for Israel's destruction. We don't have a problem with the people of Iran. I think many Irans love Israel. We have a shared history and shared culture to many extents. The regime is bent on our destruction, and that is our issue. So this war didn't start a few weeks ago, and irrespective of what did or didn't happen in Damascus, Iran seeks our destruction and is doing their utmost to bring about that through their proxies, and now we see through a direct attack against our people.
Let's talk about this direct attack then. The U.S. has reportedly told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu they won't support further retaliation for Israel to take the win in terms of its ability to do what you said, what could have had the potential to do major damage, deter most of those projectiles, missiles and military drones. The U.K. is also calling for restraint. Would Israel go this alone ultimately, do you think?
Well, what I can tell you is that our war cabinet has met for the last few days. We're looking at the situation very, very closely. At the beginning of the war on October 7th, people thought we were going to go in guns a-blazing into Gaza to seek revenge or I don't know what. But that's not how we operate. We operate fully in accordance with international humanitarian law. We thought it through. We took some time. We went in clear, calm, and collected into Gaza. Military experts from England, from America, have said that we actually have operated in a way that has avoided civilian casualties in a way that no other army has in history. So it's not a case of, I can't comment on plans or discussions that are being had behind closed doors. Obviously, we take our allies' advice very, very seriously, and we discuss situations with our allies. And we're happy that on Saturday night, so many of our strategic allies came up, stood shoulder to shoulder with us, because it could have been much, much worse. We could have woken up to absolute carnage on Sunday morning.
Again, and I can fully appreciate there are a number of diplomatic, moves afoot, and Israel has to consider its position very, very clearly. I think the world is waiting to see what's going to happen next, because it isn't, an altercation or an issue just between 2 or 3 or 4 countries. It really does have the potential, as many analysts have said, Avi, over the last couple of days, of bringing the entire region into conflict. So talking about next steps is very important to hear from the Israeli government's perspective. Just want to quickly touch this, which does go into that territory. And again, I can appreciate if you can't answer it directly. The International Atomic Energy Agency's Director General, Rafael Grossi, voicing concerns about the possibility of an Israeli airstrike on Iranian nuclear facilities. Is this at all likely to be on the table for Israel?
Yeah, I obviously can't talk to that at all. But what I can say is, can you imagine Can you imagine if Iran had a nuclear weapon after what they just did to us on Saturday night? I mean, it boggles the mind. But Israel will do our utmost to defend ourselves. We don't seek any form of escalation. We didn't want this war. We didn't choose this war. It was forced upon us, and it was forced upon us by Iranian proxies, Hamas on October 7th, but also Hezbollah, who could have sat this out, and on October 8th decided to start firing missiles at us and have continued to do it almost daily. So Israel, from our very inception, from our Declaration of Independence, has put out an olive branch of peace to our neighbors and seeks peace. It's in our very DNA that we seek peace and quiet in this region and in the world. But that's not Iran's perspective. Iran wants to constantly ignite the region, and we will do our utmost to continue to seek peace. It's important for people to understand our perspective on that. But we are also being attacked on a day-in, day-out basis, and there are 133 Israeli hostages being held, a crime against humanity that needs to come home.
Avi Hyman, thanks for talking to us this morning. We appreciate your time.